Merci beaucoup. Et, the whole event is in English, so I'll speak in English. That was scheduled as such. So welcome to the ULB. I'm representing the rector of the Université Libre de Bruxelles, who couldn't make it today. And this event is organized as a collaboration, a partnership between the rectorate of ULB and the Swiss mission to the European Union. So Mr. Ambassador of the Swiss mission and Mr. Ambassador of the Belgian embassy, Swiss embassy, welcome to this event. This is, so it's also a partnership with the Institut d'études européennes, the Institute of European Studies, and of course the Solvay Brussels School of Economics and Management, and what we call at Solvay the Business Voice series for an obvious reason. So how will the event take place? We are going to be strict on the agenda. We will start with an academic presentation by one of our full-time faculty member, Professor Kevin Jackson, who came from the US and is holder of the Daniel Janssen Chair of Corporate Social Responsibility. He will speak for 15 minutes, and then we'll have our guest speaker of today, Mr. Bulcke from Nestlé, and he will make a speech of about 30 minutes. And then, as you know, we are at ULB, freedom of speech. We defend critical spirit and open-minded. So there will be a question and answer session of about 30 minutes after the speech of Mr. Bulcke. So Mr. Bulcke, thank you very much for being here today. And I invite my colleague, my dear colleague, Kevin Jackson, to make the introduction. Thank you very much for your availability as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruno, and good evening, everybody. On behalf of the entire ULB academic community, I want to welcome all of you to the university and to the Solvay Brussels School of Economics and Management. And I wanted to extend my appreciation to everyone who's contributed to making this CEO conference a reality, especially our cherished dean, Bruno. And also want to thank in particular Johan, Soha, Frank, Sarah, Alex, and Celine. There's even more of them, but I can't say them all, for their help and participation. And of course, I thank Nestlé CEO Paul Bulcke for this opportunity to share his insights and wealth of experience with us. In this brief introduction, I just want to share a few thoughts with you on this very important topic, the societal role of a multinational today, as you begin your deliberations for the evening on the meaning and challenges of corporate social responsibility. I think the timing of this conference couldn't be better. As one reads the headlines from the media from all corners of the world, it's clear that today there's a demand for greater global corporate governance, more transparency, the extension of mutual respect, integrity, and a renewed united crusade against poverty, intolerance, corruption, and environmental destruction. While the globe is very big, modern technology has made the world smaller, and there's at least a potential for the people to become more united than ever before. We all realize that to achieve these goals, enlightened business education is a vital and important instrument. And we also know that the more quality learning one receives, the better we all are. After all, learning is a required lifelong experience. Education and economic development, healthcare, consumer demand, investment, banking, finance, technology, cultural differences, and ethical conduct, to name just a few, that's necessary if we're going to address the world's ills and prepare a new generation of leaders to meet today's special global challenges and promote a spirit of inclusion, not exclusion. So it's fitting that we're gathered here at Solvay Business School, where we have a global presence and are continuing our academic leadership within and outside Belgium. As holder of the Daniel Janssen Family Chair in Corporate Social Responsibility, I am committed to making SBSEM a standard for ethics, service, and academic excellence. Integrity in all disciplines of the business school should be a part of our everyday culture. This conference brings together many people from various fields, all dedicated to the aspirations of CSR. And this demonstrates the collaboration that is a part of our academic culture. We're a center of open learning and critical thought that instills optimism for the future in all of us. In today's society, the successful creation of what I will call innovators of integrity, that is, business leaders with a passion for sustainability and human rights, is essential. Developing a cadre of new, creative, independent, and fair business and civic professionals, as well as enlightened businesses, is one of the most important tools in raising the world's standard of living, as well as encouraging education and eradicating poverty. Self-esteem, mutual respect, and improved basic human rights are all products of economic success, with each reinforcing the other characteristic. One of today's most pressing priorities and challenges is the introduction and, in some cases, extension of human rights in certain parts of the world where human rights equates to basic survival. In that effort, it is incumbent on all of us to join the crusade and devote the resources to promote the unity of sustainability, education, business innovation, and human rights to ease the suffering of many. Today, there are, of course, many universities across Europe offering formal graduate programs in innovation and sustainability. We at Solvay Business School are particularly proud of partnering our innovation focus with CSR, and we are blessed to have so many leading academic champions of both on our faculties and across our base of alumni. Business innovation for sustainability and human rights should be a key priority among all educators and educational institutions, with globalization a key to success. That success directly contributes to increased dignity and human rights. As the spirit of capitalism, free trade, free markets, and free choice continue to be introduced to different parts of the world, the need for creative, responsible, honest, and educated business leaders has never been greater. And I'm pleased to recall one of the champions of innovation, Mr. Bertrand Piccard, who gave a very inspiring speech here at ULB about just this time last year in connection with our hosting of the Philippe de Woot Award. Bertrand Piccard is a Swiss psychiatrist and an aviator. In 1999, he was the first to fly around the world nonstop in a balloon. In 2013, he and a colleague alternatively commandeered the first coast-to-coast flight across the US in a single-seat powered aircraft, which, by the way, provoked a number of calls to that there were UFOs being sighted. What especially impressed me and many in the audience was Piccard's eloquent expression of the notion of introducing more consciousness into our actions and reactions. This squares with what many of the great spiritual leaders from ancient times to the present day have taught. All too often, we in business go about our lives as if we were on kind of autopilot, just reacting automatically to whatever's happening around us. What's interesting about the life of an explorer, as Piccard's speech recounting his experiences amply illustrated, is that you are cast into the unknown. You're forced out of your habits and need to come up with new answers to the questions that life is confronting you with. These are moments that can wake you up from that kind of automatic pilot state. You're more focused and efficient because you have access to all of your consciousness and awareness. Today in education, as in finance, we're moving toward a world in which there are maybe no more firm geographic boundaries, no restricted time zones, no impossible consumer needs, no language barriers or shortage of opportunities. The world needs new ideas, new products, new business leaders, and greater global cooperation, compassion, and communication. Innovation, integrity, and human rights all go hand in hand and are needed the world over now more than ever. Over the many years that I have researched and written in the field of CSR, I've had the honor of being in contact with business leaders, dignitaries, activists, and policymakers. I can report from personal experience and academic scholarship after traveling the world that all these things, innovation, sustainability, and human rights, are linked, and what I term reciprocity and integral human development in a recent article I authored for Journal of Business Ethics. It's entitled Economy of Mutuality, is, I argue, the ultimate goal of business, having an immediate and positive effect on all parts of society. The basic idea is simply that we need a new foundation for rethinking the nature and purpose of business. Over the last several decades, the boundaries separating profit-based and non-profit enterprises have been taking on a greater permeability, and a variety of enterprises that have developed exemplify features from both market economy and social economy. Behind this hybridization of enterprises is a blending of the logic of commercial exchange, normally associated with the for-profit sector, with the logic of gift, typically associated with the nonprofit sector, whereas the logic of commercial exchange is conventionally driven by principles of profit maximization, mutual gains, and the pursuit of financial sustainability, the logic of gift is conventionally driven by principles of charity, solidarity, and the pursuit of social sustainability. So an overarching objective of economy of mutuality is to offer rudiments of a theory of enterprise where businesses are supposed and understood to be in the service of integral human development, mutuality, and reciprocity. This is all very highly theoretical, and to shift the focus just for a minute to sort of get real, as Dr. Phil would say, I've learned that there are really some basic principles that apply to business and cultures the world over, and I'll simply state these. As one, the more competition, the better the products, the more open the markets, and the more competitive the pricing, the more successful the participants and ultimately the consumers will be. Where there's greater transparency, there tends to be more confidence, and that translates into growth. There's always room for new ideas and new contributors, and there can be no compromise with integrity. Any compromise or shortcut usually impedes progress. In many parts of the world, the highest ethical practices are expected, and when they're not practiced, they make headlines all around the world. And finally, reputational capital is one of the most important assets that a multinational firm has. And the reputation that a multinational company builds is in place for a really long time. And I would call your attention just to a book that I published. Now it's been, I think, 10 years, called Building Reputational Capital by Oxford University Press. And I think, though, it's even more relevant now than it was when it first was published back then. And it addresses the strategy and importance of integrity in building this non-physical yet vital intangible business asset. So to conclude, the collaborations between our business school and sustainability-minded companies are extremely important. I applaud the executive leadership at Nestlé for being open to this dialogue tonight so that we can together question some old myths, challenge the establishment, and ingrain some optimism by breaking down obsolete and inappropriate barriers that have stood too long between market economy and social economy. There's a lot of work ahead, but by exchanging ideas, by working together and communicating with each other, we all can make a big difference. Thank you very much. And so I now would like to welcome to the stage Paul Bulcke, and I'm sure we'll all benefit from his insights. Thank you very much.
Well, ambassadors, Dean, ladies and gentlemen, d'abord, bonsoir. C'est un plaisir d'être là. Good evening. It's really a pleasure to be here. Also, and you must know that actually my two sons have been here in this school and have graduated from Solvay. So that's a double pleasure to be here and an honor. The overall theme of my intervention tonight is actually the role of a multinational in society today. It is a subject that is extremely important and actually particularly relevant in this post-crisis world where quite a few questions have come to the surface. But before I start with touching the topic, allow me to say a few words about Nestlé so that we also see a little bit the dimension and what Nestlé is all about. And a little bit back to the history of Nestlé. It started almost 150 years ago. It is next year that we're going to have 150 years. And it started actually with the founder of the company, Henri Nestlé, that came an immigrant from Germany who launched a product, farine lactée, that effectively saved the life of a child. And that has been the base of our company from then and has stayed with us until today. Now today, what is Nestlé? Nestlé is a company that is that has 340,000 employees all over the world. We have activities and structures in over 150 countries. We have also 460 factories all over the world working for us. It is, as you can see, one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world with a turnover of, I would say, $100 billion. Dollars. I say dollars because when I express it in Swiss francs, it's every day smaller. But yet, with all that size and might, apparently, we are something like slightly above 1.5%, only 1.5% of what you could call the global food, industrialized food market. In mindset, Nestlé is a Swiss company, Swiss roots, as I said, from an immigrant, but it is quite scientifically based in solution bringing, and it goes and it is part of societies where it has been implanted. It is an European, I would say, global company, yet with quite very strong Swiss roots. Roots means values, the Swiss culture. Our values in our company are basically linked with, first of all, outward looking. And here in Belgium, we understand what I mean. Small countries are very fast outward looking, based on integrity. And we have heard the word integrity quite a few times already. Multiculturalism. We are, by nature, a very open to diversity company. You just think about our executive board. Our executive board has 13, 14 members, and we have 10 nationalities. In our headquarters with 1,500, 1,600 people, we have over 100 nationalities. So that's a natural way of showing that we do have multiculturalism. We have a very industrial orientation, 460 factories, so producing products, being linked up with physical supply chains, being part of a country and staying for a long time. That is what we are, manufacturing, making things. I would say also the work ethic of hard-working, would say, the Protestant work ethic of Switzerland is there too, pragmatism, long-term orientation. In spite of all, long-term is what dominates our strategic going about our business. You have to have short-term intensity, but it's long-term that dictates what we do. In other words, I would say what we have as a fundamental value of our culture is respect. Respect is the word that is the distillation of all what we want to stand for. If you say long-term, well, that is respecting the future. If you say sustainability, that's respecting the future too and the next generation. If you say multiculturalism, that is respecting other ways of seeing the world, other ways of going about the world, other cultures. If you say respect for our consumers, it is also creating and delivering quality. We respect and also quality in relationships. We respect the countries where we're in and working in. So, in other words, I think we are what I would say a truly multinational, global, local company. Now, let me get to the role of the multinational in society in general terms. And let me give you some general remarks on this. What is the background of this role of multinational companies or in society today? My starting point is that actually the economical activity that translates into companies and when they have a multinational dimension, multinational companies are, after all, also companies, are integral part of society. They are part of society. Society is an aggregate of people living together and organizing themselves in a less or more ordered way. As individuals, we are part of society. As companies, big and small, are local or global, are just a specific way with a certain purpose to aggregate also individuals, and as such, also companies are integral part of society. And I take even that point even further. It's not only part of society. A company can only exist by being part of a society. And a multinational company like Nestlé, this means actually existing also as part of the different society it works in, with different ways of going about life, with different histories, with different capabilities and possibilities. Local specificities do matter. But this is not actually an easy discourse or a speech to give today, because it's known for quite a while. It's known for quite a while that economical activity, the homo economicus, translated into companies, are generally seen and questioned. Economical activity in our society, basically the Western society, is questioned and has been alienated somewhere of the social dimension or the social discussion in society. And the recent financial crisis has actually shaken up and sharpened that discussion and led to many, many questions about the role of companies in general, and actually the economical activity in general in society. More specifically, yes, indeed, multinationals, because they have that size and have that presence that invites to be questioned. Many blame multinationals, especially, I would say, in the financial sector, because we had a financial crisis. I think trust has eroded. The economical activity and the industrial and the economical dimension of society is somewhere alienated of the societal discussions. Capitalism, as a word, or basically profit-making, has come under increased criticism. And in many instances, I would say, there's rightly so a questioning about that. I believe that the financial crisis was not only a financial crisis. I believe the financial crisis was a crisis of values. There was more focus given to the short term, and we lost sight of the longer term perspective of things. We were emphasizing and starting to live in a society, not only in the economical society, in general society, a society of me now instead of us tomorrow. And that has led to the fundamental distrust of profit per se as a motive, just to take that part of that equation out, profit. Profit is seen as harmful. But profit per se is not bad, it's not harmful. Actually, profit is an expression of a fundamental human behavior that is linked with that I want to be today better off than yesterday. Or my family has to be better off tomorrow than we are today. Or my kids, I hope, they're going to be better off than me today. Profits, as such, in economical terms, is indeed essentially financial gain. It is actually the difference between input and output. It is actually a reward for effort. Instead, it is not profit per se that is in discussion. What should be in discussion is how profit is made that matters. It is a question of ethics. It's not only the how it is made, it is also what is it used for that matters. We need to address this value crisis and return back to basics, I think. The basic role of, and the obvious direct role of any economical activity or any company in society is to create value. And value for its customers to start with. In our case, that is working and producing food and healthy food products and services for our consumers. And the consumer looks for value for money. He looks for value beyond the price paid, the functional part of it, like the nutritional value, also the pleasure, convenience, the branded goods, also the ubiquitous dimension of our products and services. And it goes even further. And the consumer is more informed and educated. And he goes beyond the direct value and asks, who is behind this? The sustainability, social responsibility, of the company behind the brand. But also, companies do have an impact along the entire value chain and can create and should create value along that value chain. And what does it mean for a multinational? Well, first you have, wherever a multinational is working, the suppliers. And often these suppliers are individuals or small and medium-sized companies, depending to a great extent on multinational companies or bigger companies. Through training and knowledge, there's a sharing and helping suppliers in often less developed countries improve the quality of their produce. And that's again a mutual interest. We have an interest of being well supplied with quality ingredients, and we help them and share knowledge and best practice with these environments. For example, Nestlé is working directly with 750,000 farmers and with millions in indirect form. Nestlé has something like 1,300 agronomes in the payroll working with them to help and to see how can we increase quality, yields, better output. And that is again in mutual interest. The second part of or direct impact of multinationals or companies in general is job creation, the job environment. Many people's livelihood are linked with activities, qualitatively and quantitatively. Employment, a high level of employment across many multinationals in many parts of the world. Nestlé, I mentioned that to you. We have 340,000 people that are our employees. And indirect employment then with that, generally you can multiply by 4 the impact of our on unemployment of our company. That would mean that Nestlé is directly having 340,000, but actually giving a full-time job and livelihood to 1.5 million. That is directly linked 100% to our value chain. But beyond the numbers, it is not so much what the jobs mean today, so much what the jobs mean to the people. Having a job is actually a prerequisite for positive participation in society. And a job is always just like health. A job is like health. You only start to value it really when you lose it. And I feel in Europe, with the youth unemployment that we have here, we have a major issue. And that's why also a company like Nestlé has made up and just announced it a few days ago, an alliance to go after youth or go against youth unemployment. I do believe there is also a responsibility to play there. Labor, employment, and then also income. And have and secure, first and foremost, a regular and decent income. And a decent income is linked with this concept of living wage, where we have linked up with external companies to judge what is a living wage, not a minimum wage, a living wage in each part of the world, and secure whoever is linked with our company is having that living wage. Work is also linked with skills and skills development, and there we can offer quite a lot of cross-fertilization of best practice and level up the skills of our people and the people working with us. And then it was also working conditions. The working conditions and standards are important, and standards, we have the same standards as a multinational, and we're not alone. In general, that's the case, the standards, working conditions and standards that we have in the Swiss or the Belgian factories that we have in every part of the world. The third impact of multinationals, impact on the wider economy. You just think about foreign direct investment, something that sometimes is not so deeply felt in countries like Belgium, but you go to the Ghanas of this world, the Kenyas of this world, the Syrias of this world. Foreign direct investment, what does it mean? Well, it means actually that some dimensions of stability are being created. When we go into a country and we build a factory, that factory has a long-term perspective. We don't invest on the short term. And that is what direct investment from Nestlé and from many multinationals is all about in these countries. And through that foreign direct investment, there's a flow of information across countries, as well as transfer of technology and know-how. We bring also the suppliers, as I have mentioned, into the supply chain and the global value chain, and link many of the local suppliers up to the local and the more global world. Also, as a multinational, we can drive important scale economies. By being a multinational, we can drive efficiency. We can drive, and these solutions that we find have much wider impact. We can also drive much more innovation. What is invented in one country flows directly into the other country, even more so in a more globalized world. We do have actually R&D centers all over the world. We have more than 30 R&D centers, and we don't have them all in Switzerland. We have them in the Chinas. We have one in Ivory Coast. We have them all over. Innovation drives also specific solutions. I just want to give you the example of the Nescafé story. The Nescafé instant coffee was invented when in 1938 Brazil, the government of Brazil was asking companies to give a solution to the green beans of coffee that was overproduced in huge quantities and that led to rotten. And that's where then through combining a societal need, a country's need, and an interest for driving some innovation towards commercialization, that Nescafé was born. That was back in 1938, and Nescafé has been quite a good success story ever since. And then there is the broader impact of our activities of multinationals on the entire industry, and that is linked with the word competition. Healthy competition, framed in good rules and values. Competition drives price efficiency. It drives also cost efficiencies. It drives generating choice. It drives value creation. It drives also, when it is healthily done, that you actually link up scarce resources with maximum output. It drives also a lot of our innovation. And you just think about it, as we said, the food industry is a highly competitive industry, as I mentioned. The 20 biggest food manufacturers worldwide, at the end of the day, do only 9% of all what is produced and commercialized as industrialized food. Now, I have outlined a little bit the impact directly of the multinationals can have on society. That was more the what we do, what we generate, what we actually go about. Now, it's not only the what that counts, it's also the how. And I do believe this how question have and will have and must have a much higher attention, I think. The how. How do we operate? How do we actually go about our business? And we capture these elements in a framework. We call that framework creating shared value. Creating shared value. It is recently formalized by Michael Porter and Mark Kramer from the Harvard Business School. That was how they have captured that idea academically and given that different angles. It is not philanthropy. I would say it's broader, or it is a way of how we as a company go about social responsibility. And it is actually not new. I must say, I have studied a few kilometers from here also, and we had moral philosophy. It was also an economical school, and we had moral philosophy. And there we discussed quite deeply, with critical eyes also, what is economical activity in society? And actually there, that's where the word homo economicus is still singing in my brain. The homo economicus, economical activity in society, should create value for the actor of that activity, and at the same time should create value for society at large. It is a fundamental way of going about business activity and development that simultaneously linked up the value and explicitly takes up into account the needs of the business and the needs of society. A successful company should create shareholder value. At the same time, in everything it does, it should also create value for all different stakeholders of society. And that is the concept. There is no healthy society with no healthy economy. There is no healthy business over time living in an unhealthy society. It is not opposed. Taking care of society, we actually take care of business. Taking care of business needs to be taking care of society at once at the same time. I don't see any contradiction there. When it is done again with two conditions. Always keeping the long-term perspective of activities into consideration. Second condition, a framework of values. And we don't have to over-engineer these values. It is a fundamental thing that everybody understands. It is what I would call respect. What it does too, this concept, because this concept of creating shared value is not a stunt of PR. It is not something that we do alone. Many companies are de facto doing it. It is a fact that we have phrased it that way for us so that we could align internally our people so that they know how to go about their activities. We do have many people in different places in different parts of the world. We work with delegations, so they act upon their reality with full authority, but they have to be framed in that network, in that framework of values, respect, long-term perspective on things, and this creating shared value concept. And what does it mean, for example? I use Nestlé as an example, because a company has to go about that creating shared value concept where it most can create value through its activities. And for Nestlé, that is first based upon compliance. You comply first. You cannot create value if you don't have that layer. You comply with your own self, your own values. You comply with your own work ethics that have been formulated for the company. You comply with the external laws. You comply first. That's where it all starts. Then you have sustainability, but sustainability in the broader concept. Sustainability of economical sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. That is, in other words, time framing, longer term thinking. Then a company can start creating shared value. And for a company like ours, we have said, where do we intersect with society very intensively? And we have three areas where we really deeply are intersecting. Nutrition, because that is what we are all about. Then also water, because water is the base of all. Water is the base of life. Water is also the base of our raw materials. We need water for our processes. You need water to prepare a coffee. Water is so close and essential to our business. And then the rural development. 460 factories, so many farms we're linked with up. So rural development is where our company can actually intersect much deeply and emotionally with society. These are the three areas that we embrace and make much more explicit and monitor very well. Now, these are just a few feelings and a few concepts that bring up a little bit this concept of creating shared value. But before concluding, a few words also on an additional role of multinationals in meeting today's wider societal challenges. It is, I have been speaking about the doing. What are we doing in Nestlé? I think also we have to do some talking. That's the reverse of what we normally would expect, because we say walk the talk, but I feel there that walking is done, but we should do some more talking. I think companies like ours, me personally, that's why I'm here also, is we have to start to speak up much more explicitly, also in what we believe in. We should be part of the public policy dialogue. Way too long, and much too much time, we have been feeling like defensive mode. Saying, okay, fine, let them discuss. They criticize us. We stay away from that discussion. Well, no. We should engage and say and speak up too for what we stand for. I'm now 35 years in this company because I feel I can live my own values in a company like this one. Still a human company, still will maybe fail here and there, but I can live my values, and that's why I'm here for. And that's just also, I was on a panel a few days ago, and the panel was about, should business lead the social agenda? The panel was about, should business lead the social agenda? And I was sitting on that panel like, well, as one of the one or two from business side, the other were from other stakeholders of society. Well, first, my answer was clearly no. Business should not lead the social agenda. I think the social agenda should be led by the society, by the individuals, by the stakeholders all over. They own the needs, they own the priorities to be defined. I think governments should also, who are elected by that people, by that society, should define the policy framework of that discussion. Within, we all must act. And companies and businesses must be part of the discussion, must be more vocal on these issues, and definitely should see how they can play a role and be part of the solution. Let me give you a concrete example. Food security. Or I would say nutrient security. In other words, having enough nutrients and food in the world. Enough to have enough nutrients in the right place, the right price, and the right quantity. And there is a very stressing need of food security. If you think about the world population, that's going to be 9 billion in 2050. The FAO has estimated that we will need 60% more food by 2050 in the right quantity and quality. There are significant pressure points, and have been speaking about water and water depleting, reduction in available land, deforestation, inadequate infrastructures. We have also in that equation the food safety. What can companies do in general? Companies like Nestle, there's others there. Yes, we can be part of the solution, and we should. We can deliver efficiencies in the transforming scarce raw materials agriculture produce into edible quality food. We can improve global logistic networks, and that is what we do in food collection, storage, reducing waste, bringing technology knowledge, examples how to prolong the shelf life without losing nutrients, how can we process food much more safely and securely. And I'm positive about the roles industry plays. A long way, it has been a long way in feeding the world. Actually, the food industry is 200 years old only. It started actually with the Industrial Revolution, if you think about it, and where we had, first of all, urbanization starting, where people left the fields and came into the cities. And then it was accelerated, when women, rightly so, entered the workforce. That's where actually the food industry really started. That's actually then also where Nestle started. The population additionally is now growing. Urbanization is going further and further, and it's going to be a major issue. Lots of opportunities, but it's going to be an issue too. And we have to see as an industry how we move from agro conversion into nutrition and health. And that's an additional layer. It's not enough to speak about enough food. It is also to have the right food, the right balance, the right nutrients. And that's why I mentioned nutrient security. And if today there is still famine, there is still 1 billion human beings going hungry to bed today, this is not a real direct problem of food security. It is a problem of poverty and policy issues and really having a more integral societal look at these issues. That's where we have to be part of that discussion too. We are looking on investigating and bringing in new technologies. We are investigating and now doing R&D in agriculture. We are part of networks like a new vision for agriculture, where we go about specific multi-stakeholder initiatives where business, stakeholders, NGOs, and governments are working together for solutions. I'm coming to my concluding remarks. This is not a rounded-off discussion or speech I wanted to give. I just wanted to give and share with you convictions and talking points. So with this in mind, let me now provide a few concluding thoughts. First of all, I have to try to show to you one way in which multinationals or companies in general are part of society and have a role to play there. But simply, I have been speaking about the what, but also the how. It is about values, and I think we have to have more value discussions. It is about long-term thinking. In the past, governments were seen as long-term dimensions, that framing long-term dimensions of society. I must say governments have to start taking up their role again of framing societies for the longer term. The only thing they think of sometimes is the next election. It's the survival mode politics. And what I do see is that companies that are responsible, still human companies, but are responsible, that they have to frame long-term and be more explicit, I think, and I'm proud that my company does that. At the same, some say, no, that economicals and companies are long-term dimensions in society, and sustainability efforts are coming more from these companies than from governments. But I would say it's not a matter of governments or companies or individuals or NGOs. It is a matter of all actors in society to really take a long-term approach on this and start walking. There's so much good happening already. We haven't just to continue walking. Be critical though. And for a company like ours, this means in delivering results, going honestly about what we want to do. Have 340,000 people being proud of what we do, but also on how we do it. It means that we have to think long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your attention. We'll start the Q&A session right now. The rules are the following. I take 3 questions, I summarize them, and are oriented either to Professor Jackson or to Mr. Bulcke, which we thank very much for his intervention. And I start with the first overarching question, and then I take two other ones, and that's how we will proceed in order to make sure that everybody is able to express his expectations. Both Professor Mr. Bulcke, you've been underlining the importance of value creation and sharing, both for those who create this value and for society as a whole. You've been underlining the concept of sustainability. Both you, Professor Jackson, and Mr. Bulcke, you've been acknowledging actually the tension which is existing between the logic of the profit logic of companies and the societal role of companies, and the link between the companies and society. As we've seen, these tensions can also lead to some kind of controversy, which brings me to ask you the following question. Which balance do you see actually between the value creation logic, the profit logic, and the question of transparency, which you acknowledge also as an issue and something which you want to tackle in the future in your company? That would be my first overarching question, and I take two other ones, if you're okay. Who wants to start? Lady in the back? And second lady in the back.
Thank you. I'm from the Solvay Business School in the MBA program. My question is somehow related with what he mentioned on the link between the value and the profit, meaning that in today's society we see an increasingly number of people that are jumping very fast from one job to the other. How is this compatible with the long-term sustainability of the company, and what companies can do in this frame? Thank you.
And actually it's for both of you, so the professor of the ULB and also the CEO of Nestlé. As the topic of the debate is the societal role of multinational today, and considering that Nestlé is the largest food company in the world, I would like to know if you see fit and actually appropriate for our university to welcome someone representing a company that actually has been pointed to be responsible for the death of thousands of children in Africa and Asia by the Baby Milk Action, which is a large campaign from England. Also, the death
Thank you. We'll just take one question.
Trade.
Just one question after the other.
It's in the question.
So
the
make
question,
it very short, please. Then.
Yeah, and the question was actually, do you see it fit and appropriate to welcome that kind of person? Also, the death of union members in Colombia and other part of the globe. Also, the fact that former CEO told some magazine that the water actually isn't a human right. And
thank you. I think we can summarize the question. As underlined, there is the question of sustainability, which was raised by the lady. Thank you. Thank you. So the question of sustainability in terms of balance between profit-making and societal role on the one hand, and the sustainability of companies, and then the question of the controversies which actually Nestlé is facing also publicly, and in terms which leads also back to my first question on transparency. Thank you very much.
Actually, three questions very fast. First, making a profit cannot work also with transparency. That would lay a link directly of you can only make profit when you hide something. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't see any contradiction in being very transparent as far as you can go. And making a profit. A profit is linked with creating some value that you get a price for, and do that so efficiently so they have resources that are minus a little bit less than what you get for it. So that's where profit comes from. Profit is actually an engine. It is the continuum of a company is linked with profit. Yeah, we need profit to finance and fuel the future. We need profit to put in our R&D. We need profit to just maintain it going. 150 years of existence of this company, I need profit to secure me the next 150 years. But do that then again, and what do you do? The how is important, how you get to profit. That's why I don't see any contradiction between making a profit that fuels your future, secures your future, allows to secure a job, jobs, etc. Allows you to go for innovation, allows you to finance and put things and links between you and society, that allows you to go through crises that we have now today and not being needed to be held by society, by governments. That's what profit is for. And that it's not done on the back of transparency. I don't see any, I'm not ashamed to make a healthy profit when it fuels the future, when it is invested in. Then there was a very interesting question about CEOs jumping from one company to another, and then where is continuum? And I don't know. I'm not going to judge for the others. I'm 36 years in this company. I've went from all kinds of countries. I have seen how Nestlé operates in many, many different areas and geographies. And I'm still there. I'm proud of this company. I can be myself. I live my values, and I see them lived by 340,000 people. So you can say, yes, if CEOs are short-lived, where is the leadership? But at the end of the day, if you have a strong culture inside a company, that goes on in spite of some movements of people. A company is not, and a multinational should be less so, depending on one person. It should have enough structure and continuum of values and strength and strategic continuum so that that should not impact directly. Then I had a few specific questions, I think, on Nestlé, and actually you was saying a few things that I also read in an article that went just out, and I must congratulate you, because that article was for me the best synthesis of all what you can find negatively about Nestlé on the internet today. I just wonder too, each of these topics, how deep have you gone to see some other views, to see some arguments, to see some dimensions? First of all, you speak about us killing babies in Africa, something that we were criticized as an industry. And Nestlé, being the biggest company in that industry, got a wind. We have to accept that. That's how it goes. High trees catch more wind. We have been there. We have engaged for a long time on these issues. We have helped to shape framings and rules in there. We are the only company that is linked with infant formulas and infant nutrition that is accepted by the FTSE for Good. The only company in the industry, because of practices that are proven and checked every year. So these are allegations that are way back. I don't know why. I know the motivation to say these things. It's for something else. It's a more fundamental thing. But let's then discuss the fundamental thing. You spoke about the union leaders in Colombia and all that. Well, we had Colombian union leaders killed in Colombia, as we had managers killed in Colombia, and in an environment, a societal environment, that was actually inviting us to leave. We stayed. We stayed. And we had mill districts where we had lost 50% of our farmers. We stayed. And that's what I think is creating shared value. It's staying in the good and the bad times. I started my career in Peru, Shining Path, 1980. And I was there with my family. And many companies left that country because it was insecure. Shining Path that killed 75,000 people in the process. My company stayed. Because it's a long-term perspective of things. We are linked up with farmers. You don't shut down a cow for a few years and you activate them again. But I was there with my family. And it was hard. And it was intense. And it has enriched me tremendously. But that's what Nestlé is all about. I just came I went to see Ukraine in these difficult times and all that, where we have an amazing amount of work to do to rewire the whole thing. That's Nestlé stays. I just came 2 months ago out of Pakistan, where we have 400,000 people on the payroll, something like 200,000 people linked with our presence in that country. Many go. We stay. We're there, part of. And that's what Nestlé is all about. We had a factory in Syria, and it is almost a year and a half that it was blown up. But before that, we had people there rewiring that reality. And we still have 120, 140 people on the payroll in Syria, in spite of all. You see, that's what I say is creating shared value. And water is a human right. And we have said that ever since. But if we say water is a human right, and then and watch out what I'm going to say here, but it is not a human right for filling swimming pools and do irrigation of golf courses. But then you take that part out of my phrase, water is not a human right and take it out. Then you get what you have. And you can use it if you want, but the truth is the full phrase, sorry. So I want to go and engage in honest dialogues. I want to go about things that help society. I want to be, and I'm there with a company, 340,000 people working day and night, and proud of their company, doing something positive. You cannot shape societies with only going against something. You have to be for something. And when you are for something, you can do something, sometimes something wrong. We are a human company, and we're not going to have it all right, always. We have to be humble enough to accept that. I accept that.
Thank you. We'll take the next round of questions. Thank you very much. Our Professor Jackson wants to ask something. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond since the student also included me as part of the question, and I just wanted to build on what you were saying, that there are moral issues. There are moral issues in respect to the social responsibilities of companies, and these are controversial issues. They are issues upon which reasonable people of goodwill will disagree, and they are objective moral controversies, I would say, although everybody maybe doesn't agree with that particular epistemological stance, but my view is that there are right and wrong answers to these kinds of questions. It's our job, though, as people with intellectual integrity and business people with integrity, to take these issues very seriously. Before I came to this event tonight, I did a great deal of research, for instance, in US law, and I found hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits throughout the United States leveled against Nestle Corporation. And this is typical, as you say, the large company, whether it's Nestle, whether it's Walmart, whether it's Microsoft, you know, any very large multinational company will have a lot of claims against it. But the way to handle those claims is not to say, let's shut down the company, or to brand the company as some sort of an evil corporation, but it's rather to take each controversy on its own terms and talk about it and dialogue with it. So if you ask me, is it appropriate to invite representatives of a company like Nestle that has controversy to come to the university? I say, of course it is. Because I said this in my words of opening tonight, that this is a spirit of open, engaged inquiry. And I thank you for your responses, because that's exactly what we need, is we need corporations to have the courage to stand up to criticism and the fortitude to give good answers to it. Somebody may still disagree with you, but at least you get the dialogue going. So that's my response. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you very much for coming to speak tonight. I work for an organization here in Brussels called CSR Europe. We're the leading business network for businesses for corporate social responsibility. And I just had a question that we face a lot of the time with the companies we work with and other companies and organizations, and it's the issue of CSR still being siloed into the CSR department of a company, and the people working on CSR really understanding the shared value nature of it and wanting to integrate it more into the company, but really struggling to even with the business case, struggling to convince the executives that this is valuable and that this is an integral part of the business. Now, Nestlé and other leaders in this field have done that. And I just wanted to hear your reflections on, you've been there for 35 years. How have you seen that develop, and how did that transition happen? Just maybe to give some insight to these other companies. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a question. Politicians tend to think of the next election, short term. Companies think long term. Politicians lacking their foreign leadership. How big do you think the chances that companies will take over that
I understand the main thing for such a big society as Nestlé is today is make profit. And it's the main motto for the economic capitalism we are in today. But water is, as you said, one of the most important things today, and I don't understand how you can see long-term perspectives by privatizing it. Because it means some people could not reach it, you know, could not get it. And
thank you. Or you want to add something? It's fine. I suppose that's a clear question. Thank you very much. So, shall we start with the question of mainstreaming CSR? And may I please ask you, Science, thank you. Otherwise, we'll not have enough time for us.
There was a question about corporate social responsibility, creating shared value, as you want to name it, is parked into the corporate social responsibility department. And how can you make that part of the way companies go about what they should do? And actually, I feel the strength of creating shared value, you can't give names, but creating shared value as a concept is actually one answer to your question. First of all, I'm the creating shared value lead in my company, because I feel that's what the company should be standing for. And there is value creation for shareholders. You have to, we are delivering results every day. We have short-term intensity, but we're never going to lose sight of the long term. That's my job. But everybody in our company, and actually the creating shared value concept, by formulating it that way, we could make understand 340,000 people and the extended supply chain, our suppliers, how we go about our responsibility in society. By formulating that way, that everything we do, be it working with a farmer, in our factory walls, working with customers, going to the small mom-and-pop stores in God-forgotten places, driving products that are nutritious, and driving salt out, and investing in R&D to lower sugar content on things. All that is, we always see what's in for the company, how does it build success for the company, what does it mean for society. And if you do that, at the end of the day, that corporate social responsibility or that creating shared value is something that everybody lives for. And I can tell you in our company, that creating shared value is extremely high on the agenda of everybody. They understand, because 340,000 people are not Nestlé per se, they're part of society too. It's the same questioning, the same dimensions of doubts, of pressure points, and they see how this company goes about it. It helps. But at the end of the day, it's not, I told also in my few words there, this should definitely not be a PR piece. I think also we should start speaking up and that's how I say it internally, we CEOs, leaders of wherever, we should start speaking up more out of conviction rather than convenience. And there's so much convenience talk, blah, blah. We should speak more with what we really believe in. And that's, I think you're much more happier in your job when you can speak up and you feel, that's what I think, that's what I really believe in. Then politicians short-term, companies long-term. When are companies going to take over? Never. That's not their role. What we should do is maintain the dialogue and maintain that framing. We speak about sustainability and all that. Well, we do quite a lot, and if you see, and so many other companies are doing it, and we're working together, we talk about that together. We link up in frameworks and all that. Well, we should also ask government to take up their role and frame a society where that kind of companies can flourish, that can be competitive, that we have some predictability of legal framings and all that, that we don't see populism taking over, even in very serious parts of the world, like Europe. And we should not shut up, we should say it to them. And we speak, and then they say, well, the famous phrase, we all know what has to be done, we don't know how to be re-elected. Well, find a way to be re-elected, doing what you have to do. I mean, that's how we are judged. If you don't deliver, you're out. Politicians, they're not old, they're coming back and back and back. I mean, so, and somewhere we have to speak up a little bit. We should expect, there are leaders of our society, but it's not companies to take over, that's not our role. We're only part of it. We should be part of the solution. Then very fast also, if the objective of making profit is, we can understand that and you explain that, but then how can you say water being a human right and privatize it? First of all, we don't privatize the source of water. We add some value to it in the sense of put it where people need it and inform that they need it and all that. Let me explain you something. We are so attacked on water because we put some water in a bottle. But whenever you have it and you have some sugar and some color in, that's okay. You put it without anything that helps obesity for this best high hydration you can imagine, you're attacked on it because you are touching a natural resource. Where is the intellectual honesty there? Second, we are, Nestlé overall, with all the water we bottle in the world, we are touching 0.0007% of the disposable water. We are attacked in North America and that we deeply a valley in California. We are touching in that valley, specifically only in that valley, not even 1% of the water. And we report that and it's checked with the local authorities and all that. We are attacked on it because there's a drought in that city, or in the region. They're still taking out 17% of the, they're still taking out that place. But we are attacked. Well, I start to speak up and say, stop it now. I told you, water is a human right. We totally stand behind that. It's a human right for sanitation, human right for hydration. I don't feel it as a human right for swimming pools and all that. There we have to have another thought and another discussion. And that is the discussion we are engaged in. We do a tremendous effort in working with our farmers in trying to have much higher yields with less water intensity. We are sharing with thousands and thousands and thousands of farmers plantlets that are less water intensive and all that. Are we the solution? No, but we're part of. And that's the way I want to walk. That's what makes me proud of that company. And we have so much more to be done. But let's have an honest discussion on the issues, please.
Thank you very much. Just, I'd like to have one short feedback of Professor Jackson on the first statement you made about CSR not being PR exercise, and coming back on the question of mainstreaming corporate social responsibility as a policy which is outside of PR responsibilities. What is, from your point of view, from an external point of view, your analysis of this process, very shortly?
Yeah, I would just say briefly, I know an awful lot of companies that make enormous strides in doing good for communities, but they don't carry the CSR baggage along with them. Some very small companies are extremely ethical, have high degrees of integrity, but they have no code of conduct. So sometimes we can get lost in the jargon, you know, of CSR, and some companies are enormously polished in the way that they tell us how good they are, and if you look a little deeper, you find that it's all an illusion. I wanted to just briefly speak to the question of political power as well. The gentleman's question, I think, is a very apt one, and it's an enormously complex problem that we have today. I don't think we can trust either governments per se or corporations per se, or for that matter, NGOs and activist groups per se to be good. You know, we have to be awake to the reality that all of them can harbor a tremendous amount of corruption, and all of them can be threats to democracy and truth. And so hopefully new models of global governance that will emerge will be preservative of democracy as you know, it was articulated as an ideal back in ancient Greece. And part of that maybe has to do with each of them watching the other, of a kind of a system of checks and balances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We started late, we finished late, still we have time for one last question before Mr. Bulcke has to leave. Who's going to be that? Sir, here.
Hi, my question is about the potential contradiction between profit and corporate social responsibility, even in the long term. So for me personally, I believe it's very obvious, even for profit, you would not kill child or whatever, stupidity like that. But on the other hand, you would not choose to engage in a country or invest in a country just for social reasons. And I say it's normal because one of your main duty is to give money to your investors. But so there is always, or not always, there is sometimes a contradiction between both ideas. And my question is, what is your guideline to choose in between? And can you give us an example of the furthest you've gone into social responsibility against the long-term interest of your investors?
Thank you.
Well, an example of going against my own interest is staying in certain countries where we are, but we cannot make a profit because the situation is temporarily totally impossible. For example, we were in Syria, we had 600 people in Syria. The war broke out, we had a factory, we kept it going. And I must say, we had a marvelous person doing that, rewiring, I mentioned that already, to keep it going. And that was 2 years, 3 years in the war, and that factory was still working. But no profit. And then they blew up the factory. And we had to let go. We paid for a year more the salaries because we thought maybe it's going to go over, we can start building again that factory. Couldn't hold on. We still have 120, 130 people, as I said. No profit. And why are we doing that? Not by philanthropy. For me, it just makes sense. We have a president, I have my people there. I hope it's going to go over fast and we can rewire. And at the end of the day, there's an interest. Two, longer term again. Because I keep my brands here with my consumers. I'm part of the country in good and bad times. Create goodwill, trust. So that's how I see a company like ours doing something that you may see. It is not gearing towards profit. No, it's not gearing towards profit today, but longer term again. There you go, long term. Now, there's a contradiction between profit and corporate social responsibility per se. I don't, as I mentioned that, making a profit is the livelihood of a company. If it is well invested, I said, it is how you make profit and also what you do with it. Now, saying, would you go in a country, or would you, where you have no way, or in an activity that you have no way of making a profit? I don't believe it doesn't make sense. That wouldn't be honest. Over time, you're not going to continue doing it. I may be somebody that actually with some others' money doing some of that. It's not even my money, so it's actually easy to do that. But over time, something that is not logical economically, etc., doesn't make sense. It's not going to continue. I'd rather go about my company doing the right things, paying over $3-4 billion of taxes, that then is distributed another way to do and help out certain dimensions. That's what I say. We are part of society. We should not take over. I should be honest to myself too, and not trying to. That's why I say also I'm a more believer of creating shared value than philanthropy. I believe that the company should create value from the 1st of January at 12 o'clock to the 31st of December, 12 o'clock. And not after 7 writing a check and do then whatever during the day. That's why I feel this concept of creating value is so much stronger. It is just a way of saying it. It is actually a way of saying how the economical activity should be in society. But saying that an economist should, or a company should go in a country and with no prospect, with no this, with no that, and just spend money, I don't know. I don't believe in that. It's not going to stick. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. But then once you're engaged, backing off on the little trouble and all that, that's not honest either. And there is actually continuum benefit for the company again. So that's what I believe in. That's what my company believes in. That's what we have done. Look, I hop around in the world and I go 100 years, more than 100 years in India, never left. 100 years here, 100 years Philippines, never left. Africa, we have 35 factories in Africa. Difficult times. When the Ivory Coast had 2 presidents fighting each other, we were the last factory in Abidjan working. And again, that was because we're so decentralized. We have local people going about that. The banks were already gone 3 months. We couldn't pay through the banks. Well, we had couriers hopping around with $50 maximum because $100 was seen as a moving bank. So all that's real life. That's where companies, that's a little bit where multinationals come to their expression. When these multinationals are driven by these dimensions of yes, respect, but also long-term commitment. We are there in good, bad times. I mentioned Peru, where I was. I know what I'm talking about. I was there. It was not easy. It was not easy. I stayed for 6 years. So, and most enriching experience. That's where I said, that's a company I can work for.